Heartwarming moment, single mom signs surgery papers, discover how one CEO's incredible support changed everything. Mary stood behind the counter at Joe's diner, her heart heavy but her smile bright. Every morning, she poured coffee and flipped pancakes while the warm, comforting smell of sizzling bacon filled the air. The sun streamed through the windows, illuminating the faces of her regular patrons, each one a piece of her close-knit community. But beneath her cheerful demeanor, worry churned in her stomach like the griddle cake she flipped so effortlessly. Her 8-year-old son, Ethan, was her everything. His infectious smile could light up the grayest day, yet today, the weight of his recent diagnosis hung thick in the air. "Morning, Mary. How's my favorite server?" Mr. Thompson, the retired school teacher, greeted her with a wink as he slid into his usual booth. "Just brewing up some smiles for you, Mr. T," she replied, forcing herself to stay upbeat, but the laughter that echoed around her felt distant. Just last week, she learned Ethan had a rare heart condition requiring immediate surgery. The thought of losing him sent icy fear through her veins. As another customer joined Mr. Thompson, Mary's eyes drifted to the picture of Ethan stuck to the register, his goofy grin, his bright eyes. Moments like those were becoming precious, and the looming medical bills were her biggest foe. Every day grew heavier as the urgency to sign the surgery papers weighed on her heart like a lead balloon. Her hand shook, hesitant to sign those papers, believing that somehow she should manage this crisis alone. A flash of Ethan's laughter cut through that fog for a second. She remembered the nights they spent on the living room floor, building Lego castles while he told her he wanted to grow up to be a superhero. She needed to be that superhero for him. As if sensing her turmoil, her neighbor, Mrs. Jenkins, dropped off a casserole the next day. "Ethan's going to be fine, Mary. You just wait and see," she said, her eyes glimmering with encouragement. Other neighbors joined in, showing up with meals and little notes of love. Kids brought Ethan outside to play, filling their yard with laughter. It clouded Mary's heart with a bittersweet storm. The tight grasp of pride pushed against an overwhelming sense of gratitude. "Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen." Now let's continue. The universe shifted one fateful afternoon when James, a successful CEO, stumbled upon a viral post about Mary's battle. Memories of his own mother's sacrifices illuminated his heart. That very day, he reached out to Mary with an offer too good to be true, a chance to cover the medical bills and a stable job that could transform her life. "Work with me at my company," James said, his voice calm yet firm. "You don't have to make this fight alone, Mary." Hope flickered in her chest, but just as swiftly, a bureaucratic nightmare loomed. A loss of records muddled the surgery plans, leaving her scrambling against a system that felt indifferent to their lives. As the deadline approached, Mary summoned her inner strength. She envisioned showing Ethan that true strength meant standing tall against any obstacle. With minutes dwindling away, her spirit flickered with resilience. Would this battle lead to victory for her son? The community stood behind her, their hope palpable, yet the weight of uncertainty pressed down hard on her shoulders. The clock ticked louder as she prepared for the most crucial fight of her life, a fight not just for her son but for their future, intertwined with every breath they took. Would she overcome the hurdles and ignite a new path of hope? Mary barely slept that night, the ticking clock echoing in her mind with each beat of her heart. As dawn broke, she found herself staring out of the window, her thoughts swirling like the early morning fog outside. Ethan was fast asleep in the next room, his small body curled under a blanket marked with superheroes. She had promised to be his hero, but she didn't know how to fight this battle. At Joe's diner, the usual bustle felt different today. Customers chatted and laughed, but Mary barely noticed, she was lost in her thoughts. The surgery papers weighed on her like a heavy anchor, threatening to drown her in bureaucracy and fear. When James walked through the door, his silhouette cut through her haze, bringing a reminder of the lifeline he offered. "Mary," he said, his voice steady amidst the diner chatter. "Let us go over the details one more time. You need clarity, not chaos." Nodding, she wiped her hands on her apron and stepped out from behind the counter. They moved to a quiet booth at the back, where the noise couldn't reach them. James pulled out a crisp folder filled with documents. "Here's what I think we need," he gestured toward the papers in front of him. "We can appeal to the hospital's administration about the lost records. Together, we can push this through. You're not alone in this." The resolve in his eyes brought a flicker of hope. Yet doubt whispered in the corner of her mind. What if they don't listen? What if we run out of time before the surgery? What if stop, James said gently but firmly. What if we succeed? What if you get to see Ethan healthy, running around like he should? Focus on that image. It's more powerful than the what ifs dragging you down. Taking a deep breath, Mary nodded. He was right. Shifting her mindset was the first step she needed to take. They worked through the plan together, and with every passing moment, Mary felt a weight lift off her shoulders. Back at the diner, the community buzzed with energy as if they could sense her slight transformation. Mrs. Jenkins beamed as she walked in, carrying another casserole. "I thought we might have a potluck tonight. We could all use a little togetherness." Despite the heaviness in her heart, Mary found herself smiling. The love pouring in felt like a warm blanket against the chilling worries. She needed that sense of unity more than ever now. As the day wore on, conversations with her patrons became more than casual pleasantries. They were discussions of support and hope. Mr. Thompson recounted a similar story of family struggles, his voice deep with understanding. "They say it takes a village, Mary. Look around you." He gestured to the smiling faces, and Mary realized they truly were a village. That evening, as families gathered for the potluck, laughter filled the air. Mary watched Ethan play with his friends, his laughter ringing pure and bright. Each giggle was a balm on her anxious heart. Maybe, just maybe, everything would be okay, but as she served slices of pie and dished out home-cooked meals, a new worry pricked her thoughts. The surgery date was creeping closer. What if they didn't resolve the issues in time? James caught her eye from across the room, a reassuring smile on his face. They had a plan, but time was not on their side. The night ended, the warmth of the community surrounding her made her feel both uplifted yet vulnerable. As she tucked Ethan into bed later that night, his hand found hers, gripping it tightly. "Mom, what's wrong? You look worried." Forcing a smile, she whispered, "Nothing, honey. Just dreaming of your superhero future." "And you're my superhero, Mom," he said sleepily, his eyelids fluttering closed. But as Mary lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, the enormity of the fight ahead loomed larger than ever. Would they be ready for the next step? Just then, her phone buzzed. It was a text from James with an attachment, the hospital's contact details and a note, "Tomorrow, we go in." Mary's heart raced. What lay ahead could change everything. But what if the fight pushed them to their limits? Would their superhero story continue? The sun peeked through the curtains, stretching golden fingers across Mary's face. She quickly opened her eyes, the remnants of sleep still lingering but overtaken by the urgency of the day ahead. The reassurance of James's text echoed in her mind. Today was the day they would confront the hospital about Ethan's surgery. Ethan, blissfully unaware of the weight poised on his mother's heart, bounded into the kitchen, his hair a tousled mess, his cape trailing behind him. "Mom! Look what I can do!" he shouted, launching himself into a makeshift somersault that almost knocked over the chair. Mary couldn't help but laugh, her worries momentarily melting away. That was impressive, superhero. But let us save some of that energy for later, all right? We have some important things to do today. Important like saving the world? He asked, distinct curiosity etched on his face. Exactly like that, she replied, ruffling his hair. Now, let us get breakfast and prepare, okay? As they ate, Mary's mind whirred with the plan. She replayed James's words over and over, holding on to the hope that surged in her chest. They would meet with the hospital's administration and fight back against the lost records. She took solace knowing she wasn't alone. Her village was behind her. The diner was buzzing as usual when they arrived, but today, there was an electricity in the air. James sat at a back table, poring over documents. Mary approached, heart thudding in her chest. "Ready?" "More than ready," he said, glancing up and giving her that infectious smile. A few moments later, they walked into the hospital lobby, the sterile scent of antiseptic coiling around them. Mary felt her stomach sink. Anxiety pulled at her, but she took a deep breath. This was for Ethan, her superhero. They approached the reception desk, where a woman eyed them curiously. "Can I help you?" "Hi, we need to speak to someone about my son's surgery records. They've gone missing, and we need to get this sorted as soon as possible," Mary said, her voice steady despite the tremors beneath. The receptionist frowned. "I'm going to need some time to look into that. They could be anywhere in the system." Time. The word hung heavy in the air. Mary could feel James's presence beside her, a solid rock, unyielding in support. "We need to speak to a supervisor," he interjected. "This is urgent." Minutes felt like hours as they waited, Mary tapping her foot nervously. She surveyed her surroundings, restless. Families huddled near hospital benches, some sharing laughter while others bore the weight of fear. Every face told a story, and she felt the collective energy around her. Finally, a woman in a crisp blazer emerged. "I'm Angela, the administrator. How can I help you?" James took the lead. "We're here about Ethan's surgery. We've hit a snag with the paperwork. We need to know why his records are missing." The discussion turned tense, filled with administrative jargon and bureaucratic back and forth. Mary clenched her fists under the table, channeling all her energy into fighting for her son. She could see the astonishment on the administrator's face when she openly shared Ethan's diagnosis and their timeline. As the meeting dragged on, hope started to dim. Mary felt the panic bubbling up inside her. She glanced at James, who subtly nodded as if urging her on. "Ethan deserves this chance. I can't allow something as trivial as lost papers to stand in the way of his future." Angela's expression softened. "I understand your concerns. Let me see what we can do to expedite this." Minutes later, she returned with a reassuring nod. "We'll locate those records and prioritize Ethan's case. You'll hear from us soon." Walking out of the hospital, Mary felt a mix of relief and exhaustion wash over her. James turned to her. "You did it. You showed them exactly how important this is." A surge of pride filled her, but she knew the journey was far from over. They'd won this round, but the fight wasn't finished. Back at the diner, the warmth and love they had cultivated awaited her. The familiar faces smiled and welcomed them back. But deep inside, a shadow of doubt lingered. What next? Would the hospital follow through? Would their superhero story really endure? Just then, Mary's phone buzzed again. Another message from James. "We have an update." Her heart raced. What now? Would this be the turning point or another setback? The weight of uncertainty pressed heavily against her chest. Tomorrow promised answers, but would they be the answers she hoped for? Mary woke up the next morning with a knot in her stomach. The sunlight crept through the blinds, casting soft patterns on the walls, but she felt anything but calm. Today was the day the hospital would hopefully deliver the news that could change everything for Ethan. Ethan bounded into the kitchen, his spirit unbroken by the night's worries. "Did you sleep well, Mom?" he asked, his innocent eyes sparkling with joy. The question tugged at Mary's heart. "I did, buddy, thank you," she replied, though a part of her felt like a fraud. She pasted on a smile, determined to keep the facade for his sake. "How about we whip up your favorite pancakes before the big day?" "Pancakes?" "Yes." He bounced on his feet, excitement radiating from his tiny frame. As they cooked, the smell of melting butter and sizzling batter filled the air. Mary tried to concentrate on the task at hand but found her thoughts drifting to James's last message. What did he mean by update? The hope hung over her like a cloud, one that could burst at any moment. After breakfast, as Ethan played with his action figures, Mary stole a moment to check her phone. Nothing. She bit her lip, suppressing a wave of disappointment. Maybe it was too early. She had to keep it together. She grabbed her coat, glancing back at Ethan. His laughter made it all worth it, and she promised herself she would protect that laughter at all costs. As they stepped out, the crisp morning air greeted them. The world seemed alive, buzzing with the energy of a new day, but in her heart, she felt a weight that wouldn't lift. They arrived at the hospital, and Mary's pulse quickened. James was already waiting, his brows furrowed as he scanned the busy lobby. The moment he spotted her, his face softened. "Hey, you look great," he said, a hint of warmth in his tone. "Thanks, I wish I felt that way," Mary sighed, rubbing her temples. "I just need to know Ethan is going to be okay." James nodded, his expression serious. "We'll find out soon. I have some information that might help." He leaned in closer. "They found the records. We can go over them with the surgeon directly as soon as we're in." The relief washed over her like a wave crashing on the shore, but doubt still flickered at the edges of her mind. "What if there are issues?" she questioned, the worry creeping back in. James reached out, placing a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We face whatever happens together. You're not alone in this." With a nod, Mary steeled herself. They followed a nurse down a corridor that smelled of antiseptic and uncertainty. The hospital room seemed brighter when they entered, with the children's artwork on the walls, a stark contrast to the heaviness that had weighed her down. Ethan looked up with a smile as he played a game on the hospital-provided tablet. "Mom. James. Look. I won." His joy collided warmly with Mary's anxious heart. The surgeon entered, enveloped in a calm authority. "Mary, James. Thank you for coming. Let us discuss Ethan's case." As the surgeon began explaining the records, Mary felt her breath hitch. The information flowed in a mixture of medical jargon, but amidst the complexities, she heard the words that held promise. "We have a plan, and I believe we can proceed with the surgery next week." A chill ran through her. "Next week," she echoed, emotion swirling in her chest. "Is that soon enough? Is he ready?" James gave her an encouraging nod. "This is a step forward, Mary. Take a deep breath." Before she could respond, her phone buzzed again. The notification drew her focus, and she glanced at it, sensing that something monumental might be waiting for her once again. "Give me just a moment," she told them. She stepped aside, heart racing as she opened the message. The words flashed like fireworks. "We want to support you and Ethan. Can we meet?" The uncertainty that had tangled her heart now twisted into a new kind of hope. Who was reaching out? What did they want to offer? Mary's breath quickened. Whatever it was, she felt the weight of fate shift. Could this be the support she desperately needed? But the question lingered, would this new opportunity propel them toward healing or shatter the fragile peace they had created? Mary's heart raced as she stood in the hallway, the vibrant sounds of the hospital fading into a dull hum. She felt like she was walking on tightrope, teetering between hope and despair. This new message kindled a flicker of optimism, but the unknown loomed like a shadow. With a deep breath, she returned to Ethan and James, who were still engaged in conversation with the surgeon. Each word from the surgeon felt like a lifeline, but the weight of the unknown lingered around Mary like a storm cloud. "Everything looks promising, with the right care," the surgeon said. "But we can only move forward once we have your consent." "Consent?" Mary echoed, her mind racing with questions. What if the surgery didn't work? What if it brought more pain than relief? However, the thought of her son enduring a life without the chance for normalcy caused her heart to ache. James, sensing her hesitation, leaned closer. "You're doing the right thing, Mary. Remember why we're here. Ethan deserves this chance." With a hesitant nod, Mary signed the papers handed to her, each stroke of the pen feeling heavy with responsibility. "I'm doing this for you, Ethan," she whispered, her heart aching with love and fear. As soon as the papers were signed, Ethan looked up, a questioning gaze on his face. What does it say, Mom? His innocence cut straight through her. It says we're one step closer to helping you feel better, she replied, forcing a smile. Cool. When do I get my superpowers? He laughed, eyes gleaming with excitement. The exchange pulled Mary back from the edge. Somehow, this brave little boy remained her strength. For him, she would gather every ounce of courage hidden inside her, but just as quickly as hope sparked within, a notification pinged on her phone again. The same message from earlier pressed against her conscience. We want to support you and Ethan. Can we meet? It gnawed at her. It could be anything from financial help to emotional support, but Mary couldn't shake off the feeling that it carried more weight, something deeper, something that may change the course of their lives. James, she said softly, looking over at him, what if this meeting is more than just support? What if it's a chance for something life-changing? He raised an eyebrow, piecing the concern together with the puzzling context of the message. What do you mean? We should find out. You need to explore every avenue for Ethan's sake. And for you, too, Mary added, biting her lip. She wasn't just a mother looking out for her son. She realized that this journey was also about her own healing, her own transformation. Maybe I need this, as much as he does. James nodded, understanding dawning on his features. Then let us do it. Let us meet them. As they returned to Ethan, who was now engrossed in the tablet again, Mary's phone chimed one more time. A new message from the same number landed on her screen, we're available today. Please confirm a time. Her heart lurched. This was it. A potential lifeline, the chance they desperately needed. But how would she prepare for such an unexpected turn? Mom? Ethan called, pulling her from her thoughts. Can you play the game with me? She looked at his eager face, each smile urging her to be strong. Of course, buddy. Just give me a moment. As she set the phone aside, a sudden realization washed over her. This journey was spinning out of her control, but one thing was clear, she had to take the leap of faith. Let us meet, she whispered to herself, resolve tightening around her heart. Whatever happens, I owe it to Ethan and to myself. As she embraced the moment, Mary felt the familiar knot in her stomach twist into something different, a longing for change, a hope for the unknown. What lay ahead was still uncertain, but the journey forward was theirs to carve out together. Yet an echo remained: who were these people reaching out, and what role would they play in their lives? Would they become allies in this fight or complicate the fragile peace? The uncertainty thrummed under her skin, compelling her to confront yet another turning point in their already uncertain journey. The next steps loomed heavy, the kind that had the potential to reshape their lives forever. Mary's mind buzzed with racing thoughts as she put her phone down and focused on Ethan. His laughter filled the small hospital room, a sound that grounded her in the chaos. She watched him, so carefree and full of hope, and felt an overwhelming rush of love. Okay, buddy, let us play, she said, forcing her worries aside. They sat on the edge of the hospital bed together, the tablet propped between them, and Mary couldn't help but laugh at his enthusiastic chatter as they navigated through each game level. As they engaged in a spirited competition, Mary felt her heart lighten. Ethan's giggles were contagious, and for a brief moment, the weight of the world slipped away. She could almost forget they were in a hospital, surrounded by sterile walls and the constant beeping of machines. Look, Mom. I got the highest score. Ethan exclaimed, his wide eyes sparkling with delight. That's amazing. She cheered back, genuinely thrilled for him. You're going to be a pro gamer at this rate. In the background, James observed quietly, a soft smile spreading across his face. He stepped away for a moment, pulling out his phone to check their next steps. As he typed, the gravity of the earlier discussion weighed on him. What would happen after the surgery? Would there be more surprises waiting for them? He hoped the meeting would illuminate their path. Before long, Ethan, a bit too engrossed in his game, paused and glanced up at his mother. Mom? Is everything going to be okay? The question cut through the air, heavy with implication. Mary felt herself freeze for a second. He looked so small, so innocent. The worry in his eyes mirrored the turmoil in her heart. "Yes, sweetheart. Everything is going to be okay," she reassured, hoping her voice was steady even as uncertainty brewed inside her. James returned just then, catching the tail end of their exchange. He knelt beside them and placed a reassuring hand on Ethan's shoulder. "You know, sometimes we have to go through tough things to get to the good stuff. Just like in your games. You meet challenges to earn cool rewards, right?" Ethan nodded, a thoughtful expression crossing his face. "So we just have to fight the bad guys?" "Exactly," James said, his face brightening. "And you're one of the best fighters I know." Mary's heart swelled at the camaraderie blossoming between the two. She knew the road ahead was fraught with challenges. She could feel the heavy weight of the upcoming meeting with the mysterious supporters close by, but seeing Ethan's determination ignited a spark of fight within her. After a while, they wrapped up their game session, laughter still ringing in the air. The three shared a moment of peace, a precious oasis in the storm that raged outside the hospital walls. Mary checked her phone again, the message from earlier flashing like a beacon. Her pulse quickened. "James," she said, turning serious. "The meeting, it could really change things, couldn't it?" James nodded, his expression turning thoughtful. "It might. We could find people who share our mission for Ethan. Or we might uncover something entirely new." Mary took a deep breath, feeling a mix of excitement and apprehension. "What if it's something we're not ready for?" "Then we tackle it together," he replied with quiet confidence, his eyes locking with hers. "Whatever happens, we'll face it as a team." Mary smiled, clutching Ethan's hand. She felt a wave of gratitude wash over her. In this uncertain world, with all the chaos swirling around them, she had them both. And that felt like enough, at least for now. Just then, her phone buzzed once more. Looking down, she saw another notification. "We're here. Please come to the lobby." Her heart raced again. "It's time," she whispered, glancing at James, then to Ethan, who beamed back at her. What awaited them in the lobby? Were they ready for what lay ahead? Mary felt the air thicken with anticipation, her mind racing once more. This was more than a meeting, this was a turning point. She took a deep breath, her resolve solidifying. Whatever was coming, they would face it together. Mary took a deep breath, willing herself to keep calm as they exited the hospital room. The fluorescent lights buzzed above, a constant reminder of the reality they were stepping into. Ethan held tight to her hand, his small fingers clutching her like a lifeline. James walked beside them, his presence a steady anchor in the sea of uncertainty. They reached the lobby where a small group was waiting. The atmosphere buzzed, filled with anxious energy and whispered conversations. Mary recognized some faces, familiar supporters, but others were new strangers who had offered to help. This blend of warmth and trepidation wrapped around her like an embrace. A woman with kind eyes approached them first. "Mary?" she asked, extending her hand. "I'm Lisa, the head of the foundation. We're so glad you could make it." The warmth in Lisa's voice eased some of Mary's tension. "Thank you for having us," Mary replied, trying to match her enthusiasm. "Are you ready, Ethan?" Lisa crouched down to his level, her smile inviting. "We're all here to help you, every single one of us." Ethan's eyes widened, his earlier nervousness now replaced by curiosity. "You mean, you want to make my surgery better?" Lisa nodded vigorously. "Absolutely. We believe in you, buddy. And we'll do everything we can to make sure you can go back to being the superhero we know you are." Mary's heart swelled. She felt an unfamiliar warmth, like sunshine breaking through dark clouds. "Wow, Ethan. Isn't that amazing?" "Yeah." He grinned, bouncing slightly on his toes. The spark in his spirit made Mary realize just how much their fight had already begun to shift. A glimmer of hope shone through all the uncertainty. The group began to gather around them, supportive camaraderie filling the air. Hands were extended, and each person introduced themselves, sharing snippets of their own stories of struggle and triumph. Tears glistened in several eyes as heartwarming anecdotes flowed, igniting a shared understanding that bound them together in this fight. Each story resonated deeper than the last. There was a man who had battled his own health scare and found inspiration in his child's bravery. A mother whose daughter had undergone a similar operation spoke passionately about resilience. These moments tugged at Mary's heart. With every shared experience, she could feel the warmth of their connection wrapping around her and Ethan, but as the conversation swirled, a note of apprehension began to creep in. Each success story reminded her that the path forward wasn't easy without its challenges. "What if we're not ready?" she whispered to James, who stood beside her, the weight of her worry reflected in his eyes. "It's okay to feel that way," James replied softly. "It's a lot to take in. But remember, we're not alone anymore. That's the first step." His reassurance, steady and unwavering, lit a flicker of bravery inside her. "Well, who's ready to talk about what comes next?" Lisa called, breaking through their intimate moment. The group shifted their attention toward the center of the lobby, where a large screen flickered to life. Mary's breath hitched. "What comes next?" she echoed, her voice barely above a whisper. "Let us find out," James murmured, squeezing her hand. As the presentation began, daring hopes and challenges danced in the air. Each slide resonated deeply, and Mary felt both excited and terrified. There were promises of support, both emotional and financial, along with a plan that seemed almost too good to be true. But then came the final slide, a new treatment option that had just been approved, an innovative approach that raised the stakes even higher. Mary gasped. "This could change everything, couldn't it?" "Yes," someone in the crowd exclaimed, enthusiasm surging. But with it came a wall of daunting questions. Mary's heart raced again. Were they truly prepared for this drastic turn? Did they have what it took to face the unknowns that lay ahead? With a mixture of hope and fear bubbling inside her, she gripped Ethan's hand tighter. They were standing at the edge of something enormous. But were they ready to leap into the unknown? Mary's stomach fluttered, the weight of the moment pressing down on her. She knew they were in the right place, surrounded by people who truly cared. But still, the next steps felt monumental. What if they were signing up for something they couldn't handle? The screen showed an illustration of the procedure, detailed graphics painting a picture that both intrigued and frightened her. She stole a glance at Ethan, whose eyes were fixed on the images flashing by. He didn't seem daunted at all. Instead, he looked fascinated, caught up in the possibility of transformation. As Lisa explained the procedure's timeline and what to expect, Mary felt herself clutching James' hand tighter. If Ethan was ready, maybe she should be too. James, sensing her anxiety, leaned in closer. "The foundation has a great track record. They've helped many kids just like Ethan. You're both in good hands." A part of her wanted to believe that, to let the hope wash over her. But another part reminded her of the reality, the risks and uncertainties that loomed large. "They say it's revolutionary," Lisa continued, her voice steadying the group. "And with the support from all of us, we can navigate this together." A mixture of applause and supportive murmurs filled the room, lifting some of the anxiety from Mary's chest. Ethan turned to her, his expression bright. "Mom, it's going to be okay, right?" The innocent trust in his eyes made Mary's heart ache and swell at the same time. How could she be the anchor for him when she felt so adrift? In a moment of bravery, she took a step forward, her voice strong despite the tremor in her heart. "I want to proceed." The words felt heavy and empowering as they passed her lips. A wave of support greeted her declaration. Applause erupted, followed by cheers. Lisa's eyes sparkled with pride. "That's the spirit. Together we'll make sure Ethan comes out of this stronger than ever." Mary felt a rush of adrenaline. They were committing, they were moving forward. It was a leap into the unknown, but maybe it was worth it. The meeting shifted into practical discussions, insurance details, schedules, and pre-op preparations. It felt dizzying but somehow less daunting with so many friendly faces around. Mary found comfort in the shared purpose of everyone present, but just when they began to feel a semblance of control, a voice from the back called out. What if the treatment doesn't work? The question hung in the air, heavy with dread. The room fell silent, all eyes shifting. Mary's heart sank. Was that a possibility? Ethan's grip on her hand tightened. Mom, it will work. I believe it. His faith wrapped around her, pushing out the shadows of doubt. Ethan is right. Lisa stepped forward, her voice strong. Every case is unique, and while there are uncertainties, we take every measure to ensure the best outcomes possible. That's why we're all here. Tears prickled at Mary's eyes. She had never felt more grateful for this community. A wave of warmth enveloped her, but there was still a knot of fear nestled deep within. The discussions moved ahead, yet her mind raced. What if the worst happened? Would she be brave enough to face it? The shadow of uncertainty loomed, but through it all, one thought remained clear: they were in this together. As they finalized plans, Mary felt a sense of determination welling up inside her. She mustered a smile for Ethan, feeling a flicker of hope. But as they prepared to leave, Mary caught sight of a pamphlet detailing a support group meeting for families of patients undergoing the new treatment. Maybe we should go to one of these, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. Ethan's eyes lit up. Can we, Mom? I want to meet more superheroes. Absolutely, she replied. As they left the lobby, the buzz of voices followed them, a symphony of hope and uncertainty that danced in the air. They had taken a step forward, but the road was still long and winding. What awaited them at that first support group meeting? Would it bring new fears, or could it be a place of healing and strength? Mary took a breath, ready for whatever lay ahead. The community center buzzed with energy as families gathered for the support group. There were chairs arranged in a large circle, filled with parents and children, all looking for understanding, solidarity, and perhaps a sense of hope. Mary felt a knot in her stomach as they approached the entrance. It wasn't just the nerves about what Ethan would face, it was about sharing their journey with strangers. Mom, look at all the other kids. Ethan's excitement bubbled over, his eyes sparkling as he spotted a boy his age. The sight of kids in various stages of treatment made Mary's heart race. She was grateful for Ethan's enthusiasm, but fear climbed into her chest. They stepped inside, and Mary greeted a friendly face sitting at a small registration table. Emily, a bubbly volunteer with a warm smile, handed them name tags and encouraged them to find a seat. You'll love this group. So much support here, she said cheerfully. Mary took a deep breath and scanned the room, settling on a spot where several open chairs awaited. They sat down, and Ethan immediately struck up a conversation with two girls nearby, laughing and sharing stories. Mary watched him, her heart swelling with pride. He was resilient, shining even in uncertain times. As the circle filled up, Lisa emerged at the front, ready to facilitate. Welcome, everyone. I'm so glad you all could make it tonight. Her voice spread warmth over the group, wrapping around the anxious energy like a cozy blanket. Mary found a sense of reassurance in Lisa's presence, even amidst the butterflies in her stomach. The group shared their experiences, some heartbreaking, others filled with hope. A mother spoke about her son's journey, tears glimmering in her eyes. Another parent chimed in with success stories, moments when obstacles were overcome. Ethan leaned closer to Mary, whispering, I like them. They seem strong, like superheroes. She smiled, feeling a flicker of inspiration igniting within her. They were all battling their own challenges, each fight personal yet shared in this tight-knit community. As the discussions flowed, Mary noticed a little girl across the room. She was holding a stuffed animal tight, her small hands shaking slightly. It mirrored the fear Mary felt. Just then, the girl's mother gently reassured her with soft words, and the moment struck Mary a realization that strength didn't come from battle alone, it also came from allowing oneself to be vulnerable. We all have our fears, but we're not alone in this, the mother said, her voice steady, a beacon of comfort to those around her. Mary felt the truth in those words, shifting something inside her. When it was time for questions, Mary hesitated. Should she speak up? The fear of being vulnerable squeezed her heart. But looking at Ethan, sitting proudly among the other children and laughing, she felt the pressure release a little. Can we share how we're feeling?" she finally said, her voice quiet but growing stronger. A murmur of agreement swept through the group. Parents began sharing, one by one, what weighed on their hearts, the fears, the hopes, the dreams for their children. Mary listened, feeling a deep connection, as if the fabric of their shared experiences wove an invisible thread binding them all together. As the session wrapped up, Mary caught Ethan's eye. He beamed, filled with a new sense of purpose. "Mom, that was awesome. Can we come back?" "Absolutely," she replied, a lump forming in her throat. She, too, felt a newfound strength, a part of something bigger than just their family walking out. A sense of hope filled the air. But there was more to come. Questions still lingered in Mary's mind. Would Ethan's journey be as uplifting as those stories shared tonight? What awaited them in the weeks ahead? And how would their bond grow as they navigated this path together? The answers were still ahead, shrouded in uncertainty but brightened by the glow of community. The days rolled on, each one a mix of hope and anxiety, laughter and worry. Ethan's surgery date loomed closer, and with it came a storm of emotions. Mary found herself balancing the joy of Ethan's infectious laughter with the weight of the unknown that drifted in like a cloud, ready to engulf her at any moment. As they settled into a routine, Mary embraced the community that wrapped around them. From casual meetups to support group sessions, each gathering reinforced their bond. Friends became family, and for the first time, Mary allowed herself to lean into the love surrounding her. One hot afternoon, as she stood behind the counter at Joe's diner, Mary felt a mix of nostalgia and strength. It was the heart of summer, and the diner buzzed with patrons. Mr. Thompson waved at her from his booth, and even in the shuffle of orders, conversations filled her with a simmering sense of normalcy. But then a familiar face walked through the door. James, his expression a blend of warmth and urgency. He slipped into her line of vision, and in that moment, Mary felt a rush of gratitude bloom within her. He leaned over to say, "I have an update, Mary. We should talk." Heart racing, she wiped her hands on her apron and led him to a quieter corner. "What's going on?" James took a deep breath. "I spoke to the surgeon this morning. Everything is set for Ethan's surgery next week. They're confident they can make sure he's in the best shape post-operation." Mary's heart skipped a beat. "Really? That's incredible news. But what if there are complications?" The familiar nod returned. James shook his head gently. "Remember what we talked about? Focus on what's in front of you, not the what-ifs. You've created a strong support network. Whatever happens, you won't face it alone." Tears glistened in her eyes, the relief mingling with fear. "I've been so scared. Sometimes it feels like I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop." James took her hands. "That fear makes sense, Mary. This is a big moment, but you have everything you need: courage, community, and most importantly, an incredible son who believes in you." At that moment, clarity washed over her. Her fears weren't just burdens. They were signals that she had something precious to protect, a radiant little boy who had already begun fighting his battles in a way that filled not just his life, but hers, too. That evening, Mary tucked Ethan into bed, a bubble of happiness swelling inside her. They read a superhero book together, laughter echoing off the walls. "Mom," he whispered as she closed the book, "do you think I'll be okay?" With tears in her eyes, Mary brushed his hair softly back from his forehead. "You are going to be more than okay, Ethan. You're going to be a fighter. You've got a whole army behind you." His eyes sparkled with innocence and trust. "I just want to be a superhero, Mom." "You are already my hero," she said, her heart swelling with pride. As night fell, Mary stood by the window, gazing up at the stars. She thought of all the faces that supported them, new friends and old. The village she had built around them meant she wasn't alone in this fight. Finally, the day of the surgery arrived, and Mary felt the anxiety swirling within her, a tempest of concern. But when they arrived at the hospital, she felt a wave of peace. Familiar smiles greeted her, and the world outside faded away. She guided Ethan, his tiny hand wrapped tight around hers, to the pre-op area. He looked so brave in his little gown, and for him, she would stand tall. Nothing can defeat you, buddy. You were born to be a superhero. Minutes turned into moments, and before she knew it, the time had come. The anesthesiologist bent down, speaking softly in Ethan's ear. He looked at her, his wide eyes shimmering with trust. Mom, I feel sleepy. It's okay, sweet pea. Just sleep and dream of winning battles. With one last wave, Ethan drifted into a peaceful slumber, leaving Mary by the doors, her heart a mixture of hope and worry. Hours passed like an eternity. Mary paced in the sterile waiting area, surrounded by supportive faces, shared stories of waiting rooms and anxious hearts giving her strength. But every tick of the clock felt like an iceberg, anchoring her to fears she tried to shake off. Finally, the surgeon emerged, and Mary felt a rush of adrenaline shoot through her. Ethan did wonderfully. The surgery was a success, he said, and in that moment, the weight lifted from her chest. Cheers erupted around her as her heart soared. Tears spilled down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of pure joy. She collapsed into James's embrace, laughter and sobs mixing together. He did it. He truly did it. She whispered, disbelief washing over her. Later that day, as the sun set and cast golden light through the hospital windows, Mary sat beside Ethan's bed. He stirred and opened his eyes slowly. Mom? He croaked. I'm here, sweetheart, she said, smoothing his hair. You did it. You're so brave. Ethan grinned, exhaustion glossing over his features. I told you I would be a superhero. Yes, you did. And look at you now. Looking into her son's eyes, not just as her child but as her partner in this battle, she felt the weight of the world lift. They had won. Together, they could face anything. In the days that followed, recovery was met with laughter, hugs, and the continued support from their community. Mary found strength in other stories and the lessons they shared. It was a symphony of hope, resilience, and love. Each visit became a reminder that they weren't alone, and Mary learned that strength didn't have to be carried alone. As they ventured back into their familiar routine at Joe's diner, Mary knew for certain Ethan's surgery had marked not just a turning point in his life but a transformative moment in hers, too. She had found her superhero within, and from that moment on, she resolved to cherish every ounce of laughter, every shared smile, every small triumph. Mary looked at her son playing with his friends outside, laughter ringing in the air, and she knew they were ready to embrace whatever came next, hand in hand, heart to heart. Together, they could conquer anything. Now is your chance to keep the story alive. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and uplift the journey. Comment your reactions and feelings about the ending, because we want to hear from you. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. You need to subscribe now, and don't wait not even one more second to share. Only true fans understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.